Hello, YME community, Superintendent Rich Schneider, joined by Crystal Eninga, our middle school, high school administrative assistant. We're going to again review our data that we used last night at our incident command team meeting. So I'm going to share my screen here. Bear with me. I'm going to stop my video of myself because my internet connection is not so great. So. All right. Can you see that, Crystal?
Yep, we are good.
Okay, let me go back to the very beginning and at the very end here. So remember the two things that we're really focusing on is our priority of our safety of students and staff. And our goal, of course, is in-person learning as much as we can, especially focusing towards getting our youngest students into the school as much as possible. So as you can see, the far right-hand column there, this is our 14-day case rate. As a refresher, remember, that is also 2 weeks old data, but you can see in our area, actually, Yellow Medicine East is the highest number of all those counties in our area. Those are all the counties we have students arriving to us from. So Yellow Medicine County 67.90, but again, that's probably our peak. Our spike is through now, but that was 2 weeks old. You can see Lac qui Parle grew quite a bit, as did Redwood, but Chippewa is not far behind, and I'll try and interject a little bit about Chippewa. They are seeing a number of cases in their zip code that will show up too. With that number over 50, remember the recommended policy from Minnesota Department of Health is that everybody would be in distance learning. We look at that, and this is new data that I added in there. And so that basically tells you the number of schools that are in each of those situations. Again, it is 2-week-old data, but you can see we're one of the 9 schools that are in that 50 or higher, 9 schools in the state of Minnesota. We've been pretty consistently in the top 2 areas. So our community, we would expect we're seeing some spread.
Right.
Daily situation update yesterday. This is yesterday's data. We had 2 new cases. Chippewa, 15 new cases, and Renville had 7 new cases. So we're seeing it kind of in our area in Western Minnesota. We're starting to see some increase in numbers. Yellow Medicine County, total cases from last week to this week grew by 16. Chippewa went up by 42. We're expecting that Chippewa is continuing to spike or to increase over the past week. Renville grew by 24. We will expect that they will continue to climb here for a little bit, and I haven't monitored theirs as closely as I do Yellow Medicine County or our zip codes, or their zip codes. You still have access to the Countryside Public Health Dashboard. You can look at that. Their case totals in Yellow Medicine County as of yesterday, 230. Active cases for Yellow Medicine County, 39. Just a little information to give you where they believe the likelihood of transmission of this. Unknown community is 24.8. In other words, they can't identify a source of all of this. And known community, meaning it's out in the community and they know who's transmitting it or likely to transmit it, is 24.1. But if you look, the likely transmission, both of those, it's in the community. So we know it's spreading out beyond just things such as congregate living, which might be a nursing home or some type of home where a large number of people live together. Active case data, as I said in an earlier slide, Yellow Medicine County is at 39, Chippewa County 62, this is as of yesterday, Lac qui Parle is 34, Renville, even though there are third largest. I don't know what their active case data is from yesterday. I don't have access to that. Staff and student data. I cleaned up a little of this information from last week. Last week's total staff COVID-related absences. I had 26 last week, but that was actually an error. It hasn't changed from last week. It's 29. Total staff positive hasn't changed. We so far this year, we've had 6 positives. Total student COVID-related absences, we have seen a significant change. BRE grew by 16 to 76 throughout this year, and the middle school, high school grew by 31 to 48. Now understand that we suspect some of this is, we know there's some positive cases in our middle school, high school, plus remember we had a period of time when we were in distance learning also. So total positive cases district-wide amongst our students is 6. That grew by 4. All of 4 of those are in our middle school, high school. Reason we kind of talk about this, we want to see if it's in our building and spreading in our building, so we keep track of that. Staff-wise, we didn't see any change, but I will tell you anecdotally, on Wednesday, we were looking for substitutes, and when we contacted what we have for a pool of substitutes, 11 of them in BRE had told us no for a variety of reasons. So we know substitutes is a shortage area. We need all the help we can get. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us. Otherwise, understand that we know at some point we may have to close the school because we do not have enough staff members to cover all our classes. Yeah. Student attendance, and this was as of noon yesterday, so it actually hasn't been scrubbed. As you can see here, the middle school, high school, 90.37, that may not be scrubbed, might not be totally accurate, but gives you an idea. We are starting to see a little bit more absences. Let's look at the zip code data from yesterday, 57 in Granite Falls. We grew by 6 over the past week. Canby grew by approximately 17 over the past week. Clarkfield, no change. Hanley Falls, for their population, 4 is a significant number. And then you can see down there at the bottom, Montevideo grew significantly. So that's why I'm expecting there will be a little bit of growth in those numbers over the next few weeks in Chippewa County. Predicting the future, we predicted that we would be pretty close to where we were at. Actually, we were very close. We suspect next week that a week-old data would be 56.44, but based upon what we have right now, we suspect that real time for next week, or for yesterday, was 40.28. So we think we're beyond the peak, but we'll have to see how that comes out. We expect Chippewa to grow, as I explained earlier. Okay. With that, I'm going to stop sharing. Crystal, let's go on to our questions and our points of discussion.
Yes. I just want to ask regarding transportation, Rich, can you just kind of go over that again and clarify the importance of transportation and what we are asking of the parents?
Okay. First of all, just so everybody understands, so transportation, and this is one thing we talked about on Tuesday with our volleyball and football parents and athletes, is we're encouraging people to transport their own children or their own athletes to these events. And here's why: because a 30-minute bus ride, everybody that is in that bus for 30 minutes, doesn't matter if they're within 6 feet or not, they are quarantined. And the reason is because they believe the air in there is stirring up enough, and that will cause everyone, including the bus driver, to be quarantined because they're at a greater risk or a sufficient enough risk that they want to exclude them. And this is guidance from the Minnesota Department of Health. This is not something that YME has generated. We do also consider the 15-minute rule within 6 feet, even if they're wearing masks, but we have to take a look at that when we do our case investigations to decide who should be excluded. Now, that's part of the reason why at the beginning of the year, we encourage not teachers, but parents to transport their own kiddos to school, is because that draws down that number on the bus. We did have one bus this week that we did have to quarantine as a result of that 30-minute rule, and all of the riders on that exceeded or fit into that 30-minute plus rule, we had to quarantine all of those riders. It's unfortunate, but we want to slow down the transmission. So that's why we use that number. That's why MDH uses that number. So as always, if we need to do an investigation, please be patient with us.
Right. This is just your weekly reminder that if you're calling your student in either building, please, and you get our voicemail or you're emailing for your student being absent, if they are ill, please leave us their symptoms, because we do have to track that. And the other thing too is we have added a code in JMC, and if we have coded your child as MDH exclusion, that does not count against their attendance. It is just for internal coding purposes for us to track. So please don't, if you see that, don't be alarmed. It is nothing that is going to affect their attendance in any way, shape, or form. It's just for our coding purposes. Another reminder to dress for the weather. Obviously, it's 82 degrees outside today, and it's absolutely beautiful. Kids are in t-shirt. But now next week it's going to be back down to the 50s. So that 8:30 morning FIAD class outside might be really chilly. So please continue to monitor the weather daily. Don't forget your water bottles either. We've had an influx, I know, in our building of students that have been forgetting their water bottles. And yes, we do have a few on hand extra for the kiddos. But that is something too we deal with every day, and with the water
Yeah,
fountains
water
not
fountains
being
are off,
turned
basically, right?
right.
Yeah.
So that is another thing that we are seeing. So please remember to send water with your child in the morning. But other than that, the only other thing that I wanted to touch base on is if your child is excluded here at school for any reason, based off of the MDH exclusion guidelines, more than likely they're going to be excluded from any other job or position that they hold after school. So please, if you're excluded here, make contact with your employer if you do work outside in the community, and just let them know that you have been, a part of that investigation. You are excluded, just because they probably have another policy very similar. So just keep that in mind as well.
And really, that isolation,
That's really all I have.
quarantine, really, we need to honor that for everything. So they shouldn't be getting together even outside with their friends. I know it's difficult.
Right.
Students want to get together. Maybe even they want to assemble for hybrid learning. The whole point is we want to minimize those interactions, so we can have things like hybrid classes every other day, so we can bring them in for that, so we can slow this transmission. Also, so we can continue with our sports too. Unfortunately, you know that Montevideo has had to shut down their sports because of it, and that's what we're at risk of. And so understand we need to make some sacrifices, otherwise we jeopardize in-school learning, especially for our youngest. Our K through 5 could be impacted by it too, but our 6 through 12 also. And then secondarily, those sports and those activities that are so valuable. We want those things to go on, but we can't do it unsafe. All right?
Right. The only other thing, Rich, that I should ask for you to clarify would be, there probably are some people out there that are questioning our decision to stay in hybrid learning. Do you have any insight, or,
I sure do.
why are you comfortable with us staying in this learning model?
Well, I can't say I'm terribly comfortable, but we only have school 2 days next week. All right. So we believe that we'll get by for 2 days. We're hoping. little bit of faith and asking for your cooperation in making sure and tighten things down, we can continue school for 2 days, and then we'll have a 3-day break, and hopefully that calms things down a little bit in terms of the spread. Otherwise, we're going to have to re-examine it again next Thursday. We know there won't be school on Wednesday and Thursday, so we won't have that student information to take a look at. So we'll really have to rely upon what's happening in the community and or the attendance at activities, meaning practices and stuff like that, to consider whether we should really be in school or not. Folks, we're just trying to slow down the spread of it. I know many of our students are not susceptible to it, but there is a good chance that some of our elderly or other people in our community would be susceptible to it. And the more we do in getting out and around, if you look at the trends and the numbers throughout the state, as soon as schools open, the transmission in communities kind of started to pick up a little bit. We know that's true as people move around. So if we can slow that down, not get kiddos together, remember to wear our mask, avoid social gatherings as much as possible, and generally stay healthy, we think we can impact it. So only 2 days next week, no school Wednesday through Friday. We'll get back after it then. I believe that's what, the 19th or 20th the following week. And hopefully we've made good choices in the meantime. All right, anything else, Crystal?
Okay. Nope, that's all I have.
Thank you very much for your help. Folks, we'll talk to you later.